Hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and lucky enough to be doing it too on Bushka Blitz, and it's great to have you back here with me today as we have a look at the revamped Foch 155, the Destroyer, the Tier 10 French TD. You might remember I did a bit of a flogging on this one. I compared it to very unfavourably to the Object 268 and said, hey, listen, this is a French 268 without the good bits. And it's still missing a lot of the good bits, but what is good is in the recent patch, Wargaming changed two things, and those two things have turned this tank into a much better tank. A tank that is now completely capable of fulfilling a certain role on the battlefield. Now, for me, that role is pretty bloody aggressive. I tried to drive the tank like this previously because it does lend itself to this. It has a very good upper glacis. The problem that the Foch had was it had a absolutely horrific rangefinder that you can see above the top left-hand side of the gun as it rolls forward, and it had wafer-thin sides. Now, all that's changed, which is to the good, because that allows you to drive the tank far more aggressively than you previously could. Now, let's just stop for 1 second, and I'll point out here. The side armour was increased to 75mm. Good game. Excellent, that area there. The big fat side armour, also on the back of the rangefinder, by the way. That went to 75 as well. And if we flick it around here to the right and have a look at the front, you can see that rangefinder dot just there was previously 60mm. It's been upped to 180mm. That's another 200% more armour. 120mm more armour on that spot. And that means that you can no longer just HE the top of the tank and very, very comfortably know you're going to do massive splash damage. It means you can't just aim up, because not only is it 180mm, of course, it also gets angled. And that means that, 180mm can turn into 250mm in the right situation. Now, I like to drive this tank very aggressively because the front of the tank is superbly well armoured. It's very, very steeply sloped. Very, very hard to deal with, and we do a little bit of a number on that poor oldest to be one. He thought it was on the sides, but he wasn't actually. He was just booking a ticket to the bottom of the hill, and we send him on down. And you're going to see the way I drive this tank throughout this review is pretty bloody in your face. Like, I like getting it up there. One of the reasons for that is that upper glacis armor we talked about. If you are reversing away from incoming fire, or even turning around a corner and pulling back as people are firing, it used to be an exceptionally dangerous proposition because the side armor was so thin. They would be able to fire at your upper glacis, and as you wiggled and jiggled, if you showed even a flounce of side and they managed to touch it, it would get absolutely rebalanced. And that was no fun for anyone driving the Foch. And it was why I compared it very unfavourably to the Object 268, because the Object 268 just had a much better armour profile. And you're going to see me hit the turret ring here. That's where I like to fire on E100s, by the way. If they're mucking around, you go for the bottom of the turret ring. The worst thing that happens is that you get a no penetration on the flat face of the turret. And the best thing that happens is you just go straight through the very, very weak turret ring. And you can see I bounced that shot frontally as well, because when people are trying to not die and not give you shots, they tend to have very, very limited amount of time to aim at you, and that means that they don't have a lot of time to pump in your upper rangefinder, because you have a 640 alpha damage gun. That means you're going to put the heat on them, you're going to put the hurt on them, and you're going to do big, big numbers. Speaking of heat, you have that as your promo, and your pen, as predicted on any kind of Tier 10 TD, is excellent. You have 370mm of heat pen, and you have a not too paltry 280mm of AP pen. Now, that AP is good and bad. The bad about running AP is it has the lowest possible shell velocity. That ain't good. The good about running AP is that it loses bugger all penetration value over distance. And that's pretty important when you're running a Tier 10 TD, because you will actually be forced at times to take shots on distance targets that have big armor profiles, and being able to successfully pen them will be important. Now, this is not the go. You are not some kind of futuristic sniper. Unfortunately, as you can see there, your dispersion is actually a pretty average 0.326. That sounds reasonable, I guess, for a Tier 10 heavy tank, but it's by no means top of the tree when you're talking about tier 10 TDs. There's lots of tanks at tier 10 that have excellent dispersion ratings. The Object 268 has 0.299. Even the Jag Panzer 100 has 0.317. The Grill 0.272, 0.29 for your Object 263. I mean, even the FV215B183 has 0.362, and while that's still 0.4 away, 0.38 away from you, it just goes to show you are certainly not at the top of the tree. You are much more like a T110E4, or in fact identical to a T110E3, and neither of those tanks are renowned as marksmen, and you aren't a marksman either. But that's fair enough, because this tank, if it had a super accurate gun, would just be a superb sniper tank to be running, because at range, that frontal armor profile is especially tough to penetrate. For a medium tank firing APCR, which loses a lot of damage over distance, then they would really struggle trying to clear a Foch 155 from a strong position, like, for instance, the corner of Fort Despair, where we are exactly right now. Why I really like these changes is that cupola on top, the rangefinder, that huge big weak point of the rangefinder. This tank doesn't have any gun depression. Its gun depression numbers are pretty paltry. But obviously, I think that the rangefinder buff and the side armor buff is a game changer. I wouldn't have done a whole new review on the tank. But 5 degrees of gun depression means you've got to really be up close and personal to put in the work. Because if you're not, you aren't going to shoot over slight inclines. You're going to have to go over the front of them, and that's going to expose you on a skyline or a ridge, and that's going to make you easy pickings. But even if you are in that situation, as you approach it in this tank, you'll be far better off. Why? Because with a 60mm rangefinder on top, it was really, really easy for someone to pick a target out and hit it, even if your armor was at an acute angle and really, really well placed. You'd find yourself in terrible situations. Not so anymore. Absolutely not so anymore. Now you find yourself with the ability to move forward and go semi-hull down. You don't sit still, you're always moving. If you're not moving, you are giving people the opportunity to shoot you wherever they want. And of course, here I am not moving, but I am obviously aimed up and looking for love, and you see what happens. If you sit still in this tank, your armor profile is not good enough to guarantee that you're going to get some bounces. If you're moving the tank, your armor profile is just good enough to let the world know that, hey, you're probably going to get a few bounces. And there's me noobing out, hitting the side of a Yagaroo. Things look pretty grim from here, but in fact, they're not that tough at all. We've got plenty of tanks in hand, and I don't know what this leopard one is going on about. I don't know if he's having a go at me, if he's just being a general noob bumping to teammates. Dude, you drove into me. I don't know what to tell you. That's the Asia server for you. Plenty of fun, frolic, and genuine heartfelt companionship to be had on the Asia server. But there you go. You can't do anything about shots like that. That's just RNGesus screwing with your head. You've got to put it down, put the head down, and keep on working there and hope that things come good. And indeed, they have come good for the Foch 155. I am not about to go out on a limb and say that this is the new OP for tier 10. I just don't think it is. But what I do think it is a tank that can really compete now. I feel like they've taken the reins off it and they've made it into something that can actually make the most of its talents, which is a fairly quick turn of foot. Like you can see, I'm getting out to 47 kilometers an hour, 49, 50. I'm hitting that medium flank. I'm getting out there to support those mediums. 20 seconds into the game and I've nearly hit proximity to ACAP, where I can man up and give my guys a big bunch of firepower. And that's what I want to be able to do with this tank. Why wasn't that so prevalent before? Well, it was just too soft. If you're going to be a bully, you've got to be able to take a few punches on the chin in this game. And that is exactly what the Foch is capable of doing. Now I'm going to show you two games, this one and one more, Dynasty Pearl. And I'm going to stop waxing lyrical about the tank itself and all the bells and whistles and start talking about the actual gameplay a little bit more. Now you're going to see a shot here that is just brutally RNG. There was nothing else in that tank that would have bounced apart from the very, very top of the gun, the nose of the tank, and he turned into it as it fired. So that's a bit of a disappointment, and we put a shot earlier into the object, but for all that, we've got to the flank. We got here really, really quickly. We did the right thing, but they've been even quicker, the red team. They're 5 heavies, and they've pushed pretty freaking hard and actually decimated the guys we had at the bridge. So we've got 2 choices here. We're either going to go rushing in like an idiot, which is, as it might sound, a bad idea, or we're going to sit out here and trade damage for distance. Now, one of the things I want to highlight here is if you were the kind of player that finishes a game like this and says, coward or dog, you're the kind of guy I like on the red team, because you tend to drive forward and just die and not really do much to help your team win. I'm more of the opinion that I should use my tank in a manner that raises my win rate and indeed pummels the good-hearted nature of my enemies into the dirt. And that's what I'm doing here. Now, the Foch is very good at this, because at this kind of range, if I can get a bit of soft cover in front of me or get something to kind of angle off, I am capable of trading big numbers for distance. And you can see that's exactly what I'm doing here. We're starting to get shots. We're starting to even things up. We're angling back. We're using this very, very big silo in front of me. There are many silos, but this one is mine, and we are now going to start taking them to school, and we're slowly clearing and bringing this back. And this is what the tank does well. You can see the bounces I'm getting. There's soft cover in front of me. That means when they look at me, they are completely bamboozled as to the hit skins. They don't really have a good read on the hit skins of my tank. And this AMX takes his time, fair enough. He's going to get shots in on me. I completely agree, I concur. You are going to get shots in on me. But the tank has just enough traverse to make sure that this is a workable situation. And now I've turned it into 2-on-2. And if he wants to come out sideways, he is more than welcome. I will put HE into his wafer-thin side armour, which is something he used to be able to do to the Foch pretty bloody regularly as well. I'm not biting there. I know that if I let him, I'll get clipped out. I'm letting my Leopard 1 come around. He does the right thing. We turn around, finish him off. Hey now, 2-on-1. Don't things look a whole lot better from this side of the map? And that really is the Foch in its element. It can get up close and personal, as you're going to see in the next game, but at the same time, it also has a great armor profile for this kind of thing. Take the shot, pull back, turn a little bit towards the tank itself that you just fired, and a little bit away, probably at a 45-degree angle, and drag it around that corner. And that will absolutely ruin the day of anyone trying to fire off, because that's an auto bounce zone all along the front of that lower glacis, upper glacis, and the actual side of the tank where the drive wheel is guarded by the object that you're turning around. So you'll bounce a lot of shots doing that, and it can frustrate the enemy no end. Here we are on Dynasty Pearl, and we're going to get right deep in amongst it on this far right flank. Now, a lot of people don't like this for a TD, and I'll admit it can be extremely arduous working the corners of this map in a non-turreted TD. But the Foch is actually pretty well suited to this, as long as you have support. And we have got the whole team coming out to this flank, which means, yeah, we're actually going to go pretty bloody well. Now, something else you can do on a tank that doesn't have any gun depression, you can see the ridges in front of me here. I can't drive up to that ridge and get the gun down to shoot people. So what I'm going to do is just sit all the way back here. If anyone pops, I'm going to be hull down behind that ridge and far away from that bush, so I won't get spotted when I fire. But alas and alack, no one decides to turn up, and we're forced to go onwards and upwards around the corner. 50 kilometers an hour will mean you can absolutely maintain good contact with your heavies and mediums as they push the flank, and you won't get left behind. Something that it cannot be said for the poor old bloke behind me, who is moving as best he can, but is still struggling to get across here. And we've got no qualms pushing up into the middle of all this hullabaloo. There are a lot of nasty tanks. We're going to get a great shot on this 183 and pull back. I'll pretty much, that's a super low roll, by the way, very, very tough. I'll pretty much drop everything to shoot a 183. They are my favourite target in the entire game. And you can see I'm worried about that left-hand side. We're going to push out here again. Where's the 183? Maybe that pattern will spot him up for me. He does indeed. We see a tracer go flying off down there, and we set up for the next shot. And I'm slightly angled, so my upper glacis is actually really tough to pen here. That 183, if he pops out, we're going to have a fairly good option on him. You can see they're starting to push down that left flank, though, and I'm quite worried about the idea that we're going to get flanked here in our very, very soft armour. There's 183 again. He manages to pop one right into that upper bracket. That is what we talk about. That is the problem you have. He fired AP because he couldn't have really realistically landed a Hesh shell there easily. The AP gives him a much better option and still nearly 900 hit points. That's our first damage. And if the Foch didn't have that hatch, my God, it'd be broken. Without that hatch, it would be absolutely broken. Have you seen what I've seen? That looks like a 90mm gun on that Leopard PTA, which means I am very, very keen to push up. And that Centurion 7-1 also hit me for 190, which means he's got a low alpha gun as well. And I'm going to push up. And there's that angle, drive away angled, push back in. I've dropped adrenaline, 640 alpha. I'm still using the tank ahead of me. There he is right there. We're going to get another one in. And then we angle up, we get the fire on, we lit him up good, and it's looking pretty good at the moment, isn't it? 5 on 3. Surely we are going to carry this one home in no uncertain terms, and you'd be wrong. 4 on 3. There's a 183. Oh, wish I hadn't have fired that shot, but still, we pull back. And as we pull back, our really, really steep upper glacis does lots of good stuff. 2 on 2 now. Didn't that change for the worse in a very dramatic and drastic fashion? And not only is it 2 on 2, our M103 is very low. Now I'm in the cap circle, but I'm not spotted. That 57 doesn't know exactly where I am. I know exactly where he is. He didn't reset his camo. We take one, have to repair that ammo rack damage. And what I'm doing here is making sure that that Leopard doesn't have an easy shot back. And as we turn about, we get a side shot into him. 411, not enough, but he was a 2-shot regardless. So it was worth taking a chance on one-shotting him with the HE, and we get that bounce, driving in very aggressively. I'm maintaining contact with him, keeping that front, and he's trying to hit that. You can see where he's trying to find, and we get it done. Great game there from the Foch. It really can pull its weight now. That side armor buff makes you a lot more confident going into these engagements, and the buff on that rangefinder means, and it's only very, very middle of the rangefinder that's actually a hitbox. So that buff on the rangefinder is pretty bloody important. And as you're turning away, it means that it's a very close to an auto bounce zone at times. I'm Bushka on Blitz. Love your work. Thank you very, very much for subscribing, for being a friend of the family, and dropping on in to watch the videos. Until next time, look after yourselves and stay safe on the battlefield.